Welcome everyone to Crafty Chat, and I'm Heidi, and I'm here with Nancy and Lucy, and we have a special guest today, which is always fun and exciting. We have Katie joining us to talk. So,
hi,
Katie. All right, and well, let's see, where do we begin? So maybe wondering why you were invited on here, or maybe not. I don't know. You seem pretty prepared. But my main draw to Katie was because she's been doing a lot of salad and food-oriented programs on AADL TV, and I find her to be a very crafty salad creator. So there's that. And I'm sure there's plenty of other interests we'll discover along the way. So I guess like first question that I had come up with was just like, what has drawn you to salads? Like what, you know, where's the interest? Are you a vegetarian specifically, or was it, something like that? I don't know.
No, so I'm not vegetarian, although I have been trying to eat more vegetarian meals. That has definitely been a goal of mine lately. But I guess in thinking about this, the big thing that made me start like really getting into salad was because I'm a gardener. So, it's just kind of natural to take the things that I grow, and that's an easy thing to make them into something else, and salad is like, I don't know, to me it's like the most diverse sort of thing that I can think of, right? Because you can do anything with it. All you need is just a handful of vegetables. You don't even need lettuce. Salad has so many different definitions. You can make a pasta salad or a chicken salad. There's just the possibilities of salad are endless. And I think that you'll see if you look at the different things that I've done for AADL TV, they're just like so different. And I'm making a little bit of a change in that I'm rebranding. So I'm going to be doing seasonal salads now. And so that's another thing that I really like want the seasons to sort of influence the way that I eat, and then the salads that I make too. And I think that if you do it that way, like you'll never run out of salads to make. I can make salads for AADL TV for the rest of my life.
So do you just let your ingredients kind of influence what you're going to make?
It's been that way, right? So like, what do I have, and then where can I go from there? And I'm not going to the grocery store as much as I used to anymore. So it's really a lot more prepping and planning and just being prepared for what I might want to eat next week. And just it's winter too, so not having as much going on in the gardening department. So like my garden is snowed over outside, but I do have an herb garden inside, and we just recently started growing lettuce and peppers and tomatoes hydroponically in basement. So
cool.
Those will definitely be like influencing what I make coming up in the future for sure.
Yeah, that's exciting. So yeah. I have a question, because it was one of your episodes. Apparently you didn't care for watercress, which is fun.
Ooh,
it's
no.
like
I don't think I've ever had watercress, so that was like, I wonder what that tastes like.
Like
acid. Very peppery, right?
Oh my God.
Like for me, when I think about like peppery, bitter greens, like arugula and things like that, like I really like that. So I expected totally to like watercress, and was just blown away by how much I did not like it. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting that it was the first time I'd come across it too. I was really unfamiliar with it. Mm-hmm. That's fun though.
That is fun. Yeah, I actually don't like arugula. There's very few situations where I also just like, I'm starting to get, I had a piece of licorice, like actual black licorice last week, and I was like, I don't hate this. I used to hate this. So like feeling like my taste palette is changing a little bit of like, what's my bitterness level that I can stand of like can take black licorice, can't do arugula. Like that's
Okay.
a little weird area to be
Don't
in.
recommend watercress then if
I
you're
will
not
avoid it.
into
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound appetizing.
You have you ever enjoyed dandelion greens? And have you ever harvested them from your own yard?
I haven't.
I've done that.
I've heard of it.
I do worry about when I was doing it, I was like, I worried about the soil, because it was like, I wasn't the first person to live in this. You just don't know, like a yard is different than your garden that you're cultivating yourself and you're putting nutrients into the soil. I was concerned with like, what has people been putting on this grass, but they were better cooked, I found, at the dinner.
Okay. Yeah. What did you put them with?
I just cooked them in like olive oil with salt and pepper. And then like most greens, they cook down to nothing. So it was more like, who wants a sample of the thing I pulled from the yard, But I like bitter greens, so it's hard to say.
Oh yeah, that's what I love about
I even like watercress.
greens.
I must have. I'm an outlier here, but
you're the first person I've met that said they like it actually.
Really? Because my mom uses it a lot, or used to use it a lot in things, and I think I don't know, and I like arugula and like nasturtiums, all those things that taste peppery and
that's cool.
Yeah, it's very good for you. It's very nutrient dense. I think you mentioned that even in your video where you had the watercress. Yeah, but
it's supposed to be really, really good for you, which I love, right? So I was like really excited. This is awesome new green, and then now I end up throwing it all away. I picked it out individually of my salad too that I made.
Oh no.
That was not a small feat.
That's awesome. Have you ever gone down the road of edible flowers? Because Lucy mentioning nasturtiums made me think of that.
I'm planning on it this year. So I've not done it before, but one of my favorite flowers to grow with my vegetables is marigolds. It really helps with like the pollination, and it keeps pests away too, because they are spicy as well. But I was looking through a seed catalog that I just got, and there are these mini marigolds that sort of grow like they're spreaders and they're edible. And so that's definitely in the plan this year for gardening for sure.
I have very fond memories of marigolds. My family did a garden growing up for 10 years. And me and my brother would help every year, but that was my favorite part, was seeding the marigolds, because we would plant them around the garden to keep the rabbits out. And then in the fall, when they had all dried, it was very important that we go through to every plant and pick every head off so that we could save the seeds for next year. And that was the funnest thing for me, was doing that. And then also eating the cucumbers and tomatoes that came out of the garden, because that was my favorite.
I mean, there's nothing like a fresh picked tomato. It's just,
there isn't. Yeah. No, there's nothing like it. And fresh cucumbers.
We seeded our marigold this year for the first time.
Oh wow. Sorry. Yeah. It's time consuming, but I thought it was fun. I really enjoyed it. To the point where like there's a garden around the corner from where we live, and there were several marigold plants that were just abandoned. They didn't pull them up, and right before it was tilled under, I went and maybe like a dozen or so heads I pulled that had been dried, and I'm going to save them and try to pot some on my balcony, because I also just love the smell of marigolds.
Me too.
I think they're really pretty, so I was excited to do that this coming spring.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I keep thinking of like, oh, go ahead, Heidi.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
I do want to get involved in gardening, because it is something that I haven't done for a long time. I held off and didn't start doing it when I moved to Ann Arbor, because I could not keep a plant alive for the life of me. It was just killing everything. But I've kept an African violet alive for like 3 years. And I've managed to propagate my succulents. So I have a scary large amount of extremely tiny succulents, because one of the plants that I got from a library program was the pumpkin succulents in fall of 2019. You would hot glue succulents onto pumpkins for like a little decorative centerpiece. And I took the succulents off of that and planted them, and they actually did amazing. So one of them split into 3 plants, and then was dropping all of its leaves. So I was like, well, I don't want to, throw the leaves off or throw the leaves away. So they just grew. I was shocked. I could not believe it. So like, okay, maybe this year is the time when like I can do a little container garden on the balcony and see how I do. So kind of get
Sounds like
myself
your thumb is getting greener.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
My sourdough starter didn't do as well, which is a living animal of itself, but
yeah, there's definitely can be an art to gardening, and I think it goes beyond just tending and having attention to it. I don't know. I've had gardens that were really successful, and then over the years, I think I just haven't had the time or the inclination to it, so it doesn't go as well. And I've actually given up on growing food at the moment. But I found I was putting like so much time and energy into it, and then I was like, I can go buy a bunch of kale for like $1 right now in the summer. So like, what am I doing? But I get it gets to that area of it being process oriented, not product, and it's about like the experience and what you get from how it gives back to you in other ways beyond just the actual literal feeding you with food. So, yeah. So, and I guess speaking of process, that I had a question about like a conversation of the mindfulness aspect of like eating something that you took the time to create for yourself. It's just like that whole process, and not just like trying to slam something together because I'm hungry, but it's like how.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. One of my favorite things to say is that beautifully plated food tastes better. I really think it's true. I think that if you take the time to make your plate look beautiful, and I think especially if it's just for you, if you're just making yourself some food, think about where on the plate you're putting each element, and to really be conscious and meaningful in that process. And then something I definitely did not used to be mindful when eating my lunch. Now that is for sure, because I would just like, my nose is in my book and I'm scarfing down whatever it is that's here and just like getting through my day. But that has changed for me a little bit, in that I am creating something that I usually, sometimes I just have some soup that I threw in the microwave. But if I make something like nice for myself, I'll sit down next to a window and be looking outside, even if it's just the window that looks out into my neighbor's backyard. Like that's not very exciting, but it's just like looking outside and then paying attention to what I eat. What are the flavors? What are the textures? What could you change about it? What can be improved? The different variations on what you could do with that type of food, I think is all really good things to think about while you're eating it. And I still eat pretty fast. That's just my nature, but like at least I'm consciously enjoying my meal.
And that is so, because I know a few people who basically they live by themselves and maybe they don't really cook much either. And they're like, well, it's so hard because if I cook something, then when I got to eat it for like 3-4 days, and it's just, but not so much always with salads, and also having like those different components that you can use in different ways. But I do like that idea of making it, especially if it's just for you, to take the time, that extra special time to be like, this is for me, and it could be a real blessing. So.
Definitely. I just checked out this book from the library called Cooking for One.
Oh.
And it's a really great book. I found several recipes in there that I made and enjoyed, actually quite a few, which is like more than usual in a usual cookbook. So I liked it. And what's great about the book is, so Cooking for One, the recipe's all there. You don't have to have it or anything like that. It's all the right portions. Then if you want to cook for 2, you just double it. Yeah. So I was just like, this book is great.
Yeah, I was thinking, you mentioned another book, I think, Katie, in one of your salad episodes that was Recipes for One. I don't know if it was like The Salad Love or another book you got from the library.
Oh, yeah, I think it was Salad Love.
Salad Love.
Recipes for One person was making me think, like, why aren't there more books like that? Because the math is actually easier the other way. Like, let's be kind to people who are just cooking for themselves and create the recipes that way. And then if there's more of you, you guys can all do the math together and make the recipe 4 times, whatever. But why is it always that you have to take something for a large group and make it small,
Yeah, and it's for a lot of recipes, because I cook to have leftovers. That's just the way that we eat in our household. So I'm constantly doubling things, even more so in baking, because if I figure if I'm going to bake a batch of cookies, I want to bake a bunch of cookies so then I can give them to my family and they will not complain of like, hey, you posted pictures of these cookies that you made on Instagram. Why didn't you make them for me? Like, or, send me the recipe of like, oh no, here, I have these extra cookies. Take them. Like, it's that kind of like little extra gift of like, giving those baked goods to other people. But I also really, really like cooking in large amounts for people. Don't get to do that as much anymore. But it's something that I do really enjoy, cooking in large batches. And it's my partner cooks in smaller quantities, so it's fun cooking together of like, we end up in the middle somehow, where it's just a perfect amount for us, where it's like my need to overcook and his need to only cook for one person. So it's a fun balance of like, we always end up somewhere in the middle.
So do you have a favorite salad? I'm just going to volunteer.
I was going to ask that too. Yeah.
Like I really enjoy kale. Like I just do a simple like massaged kale, little olive oil, lemon juice, nutritional yeast, and then like some other stuff on there, other veggies, but like that's usually my base. Or like kale and collard greens or something like that. Go for the darker greens, I guess. But I also really do love arugula. I love salad. So and I'm kind of hungry right now. But yeah, so what's your favorite salad?
Well, it's funny that you brought up kale, because I just filmed my kale salad last week. So look for that. I do a sweet potato and kale salad. So that is coming up. But my favorite salad is a wedge salad. Like, by far. And it's also one of probably the most unhealthy salads that you can get, because it's got bacon and blue cheese, and I put ranch dressing and balsamic vinaigrette reduction. So it's just, and iceberg lettuce has no nutritional value. So it's just like a big, tasty salad bomb that it's like my comfort salad, right? Like if I'm feeling bad, give me a wedge salad. I'm probably going to be feeling a little bit better after I eat it.
Well, and it's so hydrating. So iceberg is great.
There you go.
It is, yeah. There's nutritional value.
I mean, iceberg is like literally like chewing water. So, I mean, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I've moved away from iceberg romaine is my favorite. I do a romaine and kale combo for a lot of my salads, but I really love caprese. Like doing fresh mozzarella and fresh tomatoes with basil, and then I'll put that on top of kale and iceberg, and then do like a balsamic vinaigrette dressing that I make at home with some Parmesan cheese, and that's like and mozzarella. I love cheese too, so I put a lot of cheese on my salads.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so that's my favorite thing. I really crave that a lot more in the winter time. I go through a big swing in the winter when it's like super, super cold of like, all I want are vegetables. I just want vegetables and sunshine. I'm a plant. Like I need those nutrients from the plant stuff. So I find myself going to the grocery store more often and being sad that the stuff in the grocery store isn't as fresh as I want it to be. So
yes, that's why the hydroponics got started in this household, is I want my tomatoes in winter.
Yeah.
What about you, Lucy? What's your favorite salad?
I don't know if I have like a specific salad recipe that I follow, but that's pretty much like my standard meal is just like throw everything in a bowl. A lot of, I like to put roasted veggies like that I roasted for another meal in there. Anything like cauliflower, broccoli. I just roasted some green beans, and those have been really good in a salad the next day. I like to put that is like the way I eat is basically just like this big bowl of what leftover vegetables. Chickpeas are, I think, really good in the salad. So I rarely follow a recipe for any salad, but it's sort of like I will put anything in there, anything that is in my fridge pretty much. And that's one of the things I like about salads. Like I kind of feel like it's the perfect place for leftover food, that you don't have to, that's if it's already been cooked, you don't have to recook it or anything. So, but definitely a lot of like this time of year, especially roasted veggies are kind of good, or like sweet potatoes, like you said, are going to be in your kale salad. Those are really great.
Beets.
Yeah, I love beets.
I love beets.
Have you had the golden beets?
Yeah.
Yeah, golden beets are so great.
See, I need to get some golden beets because the thing that frustrates me about working with beets is that it stains everything.
Or your hands for days.
Yeah, like I tried wearing gloves handling them, and you just don't get the same like control to get the skins off as you do when you're just using your hands. So golden beets, that's a good idea. I have to look for those.
And so a lot of times with the golden beets, and I even do this with red beets, like I just scrub them really well. Like I don't even peel them because I used to dabble in like raw food stuff. And so just like, and put those, I have a spiralizer so you can make like, like the noodles and stuff with them. And yeah, they're great.
Raw beets are great when they're grated too, like but that is
and they have so much water. It's like, you don't need to have a lot of dressing to, sorry, I talked right over you there.
That's a really good idea. No, I love pickled beets.
Me too.
But so I'll put those on a salad when I can get them, along with olives. So I feel like that adds a lot of flavor. So it's kind of like, I wanted to try roasting beets. I've never tried it before. The last beets that I bought were terrible, and they were super tiny. Like they kind of like fell apart. I think I cooked them for too long. But I was kind of looking at these like this beet mush, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't have a food processor. I can't make hummus out of them. So yeah, I could have done that. So I'll keep that in mind for later down the line. But no, I love beets. I don't run into a lot of people that like them. I'm the only one in my family that likes beets. So
too bad. I love them.
I love them too. I had found out that a friend I've known for years and years, like she was like, I don't like beets, and she likes everything, right? So I was just like, what? Scandalous. So I thought everybody liked beets.
It's always something. So I remember you did because we talked about it. I was so excited. I got re-inspired to do pickled red onions.
Yeah.
And I've been keeping that in my fridge all the time now.
Yeah, me too.
So good and so simple. Are there other things that you pickle, or do you do any fermenting like sauerkraut or?
Not really. Pickled peppers. So usually we'll do some jalapenos when those come in the summer, and then habaneros too. Pickled habaneros are pretty outstanding. I like spicy food a lot. I like very spicy peppers. So that's kind of almost like a mild pepper in this house, but that's it though. Just onions and peppers, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you do like those hot peppers. Have you ever done like a pepper eating challenge?
Have you ever heard of the show Hot One?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we did get all of the hot sauces, I think from 2 seasons ago, and went through and did the whole 10 chicken wings, and I don't recommend that.
No.
No.
Well, and I was thinking there's a program called, was it We Are the Champions? So it's all about like different like championship things, events. That's the word. And different like people who chase like a cheese down a hill and often break their shoulders and things like that. It's like really dangerous, but it's just a thing to do. But they had a pepper eating contest.
Cheese thing. I think I've seen this.
Yeah. And they have one where they eat peppers, and it's just like, and they're not allowed to like drink anything in between, and it's just like, oh my God.
No.
The tears.
No, I'm not that hardcore. I like peppers like as an ingredient. I won't just bite one. Like, no.
Yeah, I think when you're like eliciting some sort of like full body reaction when you eat something, you see people who in those like challenges, and it's just like they're breaking out in a sweat, and it's just like, that's not in my mind where food's supposed to take you. It's like,
that's my dad played a terrible trick on me 2 weeks ago, where he bought these pickles, the Clausen hot and spicy dill pickles. And he's like, oh, you should try these. They're not that spicy. No, they're fine. And his spice tolerance is a lot lower than mine. So I figured, oh, totally fine. Bit into it, had the full body reaction. My face immediately turned red. My eyes were watering. I thought I felt like I was gonna die. I was just like, this is not. And then he's laughing at me of like, yeah, it's really hot, isn't it? I was just like, I'm gonna get you back somehow. And then he was telling me, he was like, well, I got myself back because I washed my hands 3 or 4 times, but then I still touched my eyes. And he was like, his whole face just broke out and just like this big red rash. And I was like, you deserved that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's sneaky like that sometimes.
So so food. Cooking, it's creative release though. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny. Creative release, not meant necessarily to play tricks on people, but
no, definitely not. But that's a rarity in our family. But my dad likes to do that every once in a while to me. One of the cookbooks that I actually just pulled off my bookshelf that I didn't realize I had was Thug Kitchen.
Oh yeah.
Have any of you guys tried recipes out of that? Because I've pulled a couple recipes and really, really liked it. And I love the humor in the book. It's just very funny and fun to read. But that came out a couple years ago, and there's like a series of 3 cookbooks. So
I think that he used to have a blog too. I remember that I used to read that blog. It was very funny. He's a funny guy. But I don't think that I've tried any recipes. That's good to know that you liked some of the stuff in there.
Yeah,
I
I
did
know
roasted
from the
veggies.
library, but I don't think I cooked anything.
yeah, I don't remember cooking anything. I don't always use cookbooks. Like sometimes I look through them and stuff, but it's like I tend to be like, I have a couple ingredients and I'm sort of thinking what I want to do, and I just Google. And then I start getting like different recipes, and I kind of, work from there.
Yeah, the internet's really great for that. I love finding recipes online, and I have just like a binder of ones that I've printed out and that I want to keep. And so that's like a big source for me too. I am like a little bit obsessed with cookbooks though. Like I will watch the new books on aadl.org, and like as cookbooks come in, like I have to get them because I want to lay eyes on them. I think the pictures are so beautiful.
Yeah.
And one thing that I actually really like doing with a cookbook is I'll make a recipe from the book, and then I will photograph it next to the picture of the recipe in the cookbook, and just sort of like see how close I can get to the picture. That is sort of like a little fun thing that I like to do. And sometimes I'll share the photos on social, and then sometimes I just keep them for myself. But it's another little sort of
really cool
art form, I guess.
Yeah.
I love cookbooks too. I find myself in a position of like I'll copy a couple of the recipes out of it and then I'll return it. Then I never end up cooking them. The ones that have a tendency to stick the most for us are oddly the recipes that we've gotten out of subscription services like Blue Apron or HelloFresh. For some reason, those ones we've had really, really good luck of the recipes that we've chosen for those, and we'll remake them. So like only buy the box once, and then we'll have that recipe and just make it whenever we feel like it. So that's always been a sort of thing for us. But I catch a bit of flack from my family for being a throw everything together and somehow it all magically works kind of cook, where it's just like a lot of times I'll take an idea of I'll do kind of like what you were talking about, Katie, of like I'll look at what I have in the fridge and then do a Google search and find something and just kind of slap it together and not really look at the recipe. And it just somehow tastes good. Like I have really good luck with that. I haven't had a lot of really, really big failure dishes of like this tastes terrible. So, thankfully. But I did in college. I tried I really love broccoli and cheddar soup, and for some reason in my college brain I thought, well, I have this cream of broccoli soup and I have blue cheese and I love cheddar with broccoli. So I'm going to melt this blue cheese in this cream of broccoli soup. It was horrifyingly awful.
That sounds
It was so bad. I was just like, broke college student, this is what I have. I'm going to try this. It was the only thing I've ever made that I literally could not eat. I was like, this is immediately getting thrown away.
I mean, it was worth a shot.
It was worth a shot, yeah.
You had that stuff and, try putting it together.
Now I know.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. Don't do that. So.
A couple years ago, I I tried to make Burgundy mushrooms. It's a recipe that takes 8 hours to cook. So I spent 8 hours making these mushrooms that looked gorgeous until the last half hour, and I burned them.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Drag.
But the important thing is to try, and if it doesn't work out, to just like get back in the kitchen. You don't have to try the same thing again. I probably will never make Burgundy mushrooms just because of that experience. But you just to not let it keep you from trying something else again.
Yeah, that's my best advice for other folks that are trying to get into cooking, of just like keep doing it. That's practice is absolutely crucial in the kitchen, and taste everything, every single step. Like that's the thing that's helped me the most, is like learning to salt and pepper everything, because it makes everything taste better. And B, make sure you're tasting everything, so that you kind of get to learn how flavors interact with one another and how they change with spices and without spices. And that will actually, it's made me a better cook, because I know what I like and what I think works well together. So then I can kind of like riff off of what I already know to make something else to work with what I have in the kitchen. So I don't have to like rush out to the grocery store and buy something for a recipe that I want to make that I don't have.
That is one of the fun things too with salads. Like we were talking about, just using what you have on hand, but just playing with texture too. Like I like how you say you like the kale and the romaine together, because you kind of get like a softer leaf with something crunchy, or softer, it's chewier, or whatever. So it's like, but that's for me, like with salads, it can be all about just the texture and the layering of things. So,
It's also a really great way to get comfortable in the kitchen too, because there can be some cooked elements of salad, but usually just like if there are, it's not many. And just like learning knife skills is a really important thing to have in the kitchen, in your repertoire, is learning how to dice and chop and all that kind of stuff. Keep your knives sharp. So it's a good starting place, I think, for anybody who's interested in getting into cooking, spending more time in the kitchen.
How did you start? Like for you, like how long have you been, or have you always been like as a kid in the kitchen, or?
Definitely not. So definitely came like later in adulthood, and it really did come when I was first able to have my own garden. So once that happened, then it was like, okay, I need to learn how to cook. And so it's probably been like 8-10 years, but it still feels like a new thing to me. There's still things that intimidate me in the kitchen. There's still goals that I have, things that I haven't done. One of them right now that I keep on thinking about is I've never roasted a whole chicken by myself. I have eaten a ton of whole roasted chicken, but I've never prepared it. So that's something that I want to do pretty soon, I think. But I think it's good to like be able to look back at where I started and where like I was like terrified to make a roux for soup on the stove, which is something that I do like regularly now without even thinking about it. Just thinking about where I've come from, and then having goals as well, like for the future, I think is really important in the kitchen, and will really allow, a lot of growth and different things to try.
I had a thought. I'm like you now, Nancy. It's like I had this thought.
Welcome to my brain. That's just like I had a thought. It's gone. It's not coming back.
Because there was something about like I'm thinking about getting into the kitchen too, and just like how like sometimes it's like you come home from a long day and you're like, oh, I don't even have time for this or whatever. But it's like I'll just get in there and just start chopping up some of the basic things for a dish, and it's just like all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, you kind of get into that groove. You have that that calm, and that it is like it's again that creative release, just the process.
We did talk some about like the mindfulness of eating. I've tried that a little bit and had some mixed success of, there are some days where I think the food tastes better if I slow down and enjoy what I'm eating. And then there's some days of like, I'm just so hungry that There's no way I'm slowing down. But I do really find a lot more mindfulness and serenity in the kitchen, like when I'm cooking. That, and especially when I'm baking. That's one of the things that I love about baking, is that my brain really shuts off. Like I'm a high anxiety, a high mind chatter kind of person. So those moments of like knitting and crochet does that, sewing does that, and cooking does that. So, and baking especially. So I really enjoy that a lot about being in the kitchen.
Yeah, I would say
Go ahead, Lucy.
the process pieces for me, like I'm a huge prep person in the kitchen, and this just comes from like putting dinner on the table for my family for over 20 years now. You know, it's like I've learned that I can prep stuff way earlier in the day or another time, but that part, like, it's just the chopping, like you're saying, Heidi, and then there's something so nice about having everything, like you have your little mise en place set, you know, you feel like you're just doing the last little bit there, but it's definitely the process of getting the ingredients ready that I find to be very soothing, and like, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead. You were next.
Fine. I agree with everything that you have all said. I mean, for me, it's total therapy going into the kitchen. If I'm feeling down and I can go and just like create something, my brain shuts off too, Nancy. And like, I also am high anxiety and generally need to be like doing something at all times, keeping myself busy. And that is one of the only times where it just completely goes blank. And I am just completely focused on what I'm doing. And so I really, really love that. It's like people talk about comfort food, and it's like comfort making the food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my favorite recipes are comfort foods. I know they're terrible for me, but I love comfort foods. That's
Not
what
always.
I gravitate towards. Not always, but
and sometimes
like
if it's making you feel better at a certain level, I mean, I think it's releasing, you know, those good, like healthy, happy hormones too in your body. So it's like a different kind of good for you. And
yeah.
And this is a whole other conversation, but we attach so much like emotion and guilt to certain foods, and then there's like a whole, you know, things are good and bad, and it's like, when did this become a moral issue? And so I think like the word comfort is there for a reason in those foods. It's like you're saying, Heidi, that they're giving you comfort, and so that is a very important place to start from, with just feeling good.
I find it really cool and interesting also, like, and again, it's a whole nother conversation of the memory and the emotion that's attached to food, beyond like what is colloquially, culturally considered like foods that are bad for you or foods that are good for you, which really food is just neutral. It's food. But the amount of really poignant memories that I have with certain foods and certain baked goods is just so interesting to me, of like, that's a cool memory trigger of like homemade hard candy reminds me of my aunt and my mom, because we made it every Christmas when I was growing up. Or like, we used to have nifflies and sauerkraut, which is a German dish. They're like flour noodles that there's like an actual press for, and you drop them right into boiling water and you eat them with sauerkraut. And that's like, I have really strong memories associated with that. And a variety of other foods. But I think that's really cool about food in general, is that it's a really, really strong memory touch point.
Yeah. Well, and it's great to get kids in the kitchen. There's a lot that they can do. Yes. And I think even, you know, depending on the age, but, you know, learning how to handle things like knives and to understand heat and that kind of thing. It's good, you know.
Yeah.
You don't need to wait or to instill that it's like something to be fearful of, I guess. I mean, be careful, but I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I had some, I went to visit friends out of state at one point, and it was a moment of realizing that how I grew up in the kitchen with my family was much different than other families. Is they had their kids right in the kitchen helping with dinner. And chopping and doing stuff, and like the kids were snacking on avocados and kale and stuff, and it's like, we didn't even have these things where I grew up in rural Michigan. Of like, blew my mind how proficient they were in the kitchen. And I was like, that's so cool of having kids have that, because it's really a really important life skill that you're not necessarily going to pick up naturally anywhere else. You pick it up at home. Like that's, you know, the first place that most people will come in contact with cooking. But I've loved learning things as an adult cooking, but I think I would have had a lot of fun doing more cooking stuff when I was growing up as a kid. So
my other question I have for anybody is, what do you listen to when you're cooking, or do you not have anything on? Or, you know, do you feel like you have to have music? Or I guess for me, probably because it's evening, I usually have like the news on, something like Michigan radio. Like the people talking, even though sometimes I can't even hear what they're saying because I'm, you know, busy with the other sounds of cooking, but it's like somehow like that is like my soundtrack, my background. I don't know. Do you guys have anything like that?
I specifically don't listen to anything. So like on purpose, I like it to be pretty quiet. Like I said about my mind going blank, like I like that feeling, and it doesn't really happen if I'm listening to something, it's generally an audiobook. So that's something, and you know, my brain will attach to that, and that's fine. If I have one that I'm listening to that I'm like really into, I will put it on. But most of the time, just quiet.
Nice.
The sounds of kitten pitter-patting around.
And my cat screaming at me. Like, something smells good, you need to share.
The begging, yeah, that's my soundtrack.
That's sometimes she'll get things, sometimes she won't. But no, it's usually YouTube videos or audiobooks, not so much music. I did actually start finding some audiobooks that I really liked. So I've gone through 2 audiobooks in the last week and a half. And that's been really exciting. Because I haven't listened to the last audiobook that I listened to that I never finished was Lev Grossman's The Magicians. And I got like 4 chapters in and could not stand the main character anymore. It was just absolutely. I love the TV show.
Oh,
okay. The show is amazing. And I'm a huge fan. But like I could not get into the books. Okay. Just couldn't sink into it. So I was like, this is, you know, kind of ruined it for me, but I got back into them and I've found several. Nonfiction audiobooks are actually my favorite.
Me too.
That's what I really like. I like those.
I'm listening to David Chang's Eat a Peach.
I listened to that as well, and I loved him reading that to me.
I read it, so I read the print version. I really loved it, and then somebody had mentioned that he reads the audiobook, and I'm a big fan of his, so I was like, okay, well, I'll read it again.
Yeah, I could have a whole other conversation with you about that book and David Chang, who so many good things.
Yes, definitely.
I don't know who David Chang is.
I don't know
he
either.
A food person? Is he?
Yeah, he's a chef. He has restaurants. Well, he started with restaurants in New York, but then he has a great show on Netflix called Ugly Delicious, which if you haven't watched it.
Oh,
that's why the name sounded kind of familiar. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, he's a celebrity chef, so he's had a couple shows, and he's got a cookbook, and
he had a magazine for a while. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Yeah, I listen to books when I'm cooking. I mean, if I'm like you, Kate, if I'm in the middle of something that I really can't wait to listen to later, I'll listen to that when I'm cooking. Or it depends what the noise is in my house around me. Like if there are other people who are having a conversation, I kind of want the solitude and quiet, so that I provide that for myself by putting my headphones in and listening to a podcast or a book. But that's more comes from having spent a lot more time together, all of us, in the last 9 months. So that you have to find ways to carve out your own solitude and quiet, even if it's making quiet by listening to something else.
I like music sometimes, but most of our music is on LPs, on records, and so it's like not really conducive to when you're cooking and you've got stuff on your hands. Yeah, you're like running over to change the record, and you're like, oh, I just got garlic all over it. I mean, not a situation.
I was having a weird thought last week of like, I used to love music, like when I was a teenager and young adult, and like spent a lot of time cultivating playlists and keeping track of like albums and new music coming out. And like, I was always told growing up, like your music taste doesn't change once you hit your mid-20s. And like my music taste hasn't changed a lot, but what I haven't been doing is keeping track of playlists and like actually curating a playlist and like creating something of a list of all the music that I like. For the longest time, I've just thrown on Pandora and just let it go, and then kind of like cultivated it from there. But now that Pandora doesn't really work as well as it used to, and the algorithms aren't as good for, you know, anticipating things that you would possibly like, I'm moving a little bit more towards Spotify and realizing exactly how much time I had as a teen and young adult to do these things and how much time I don't have now. So it was like, wow, this is something I really took for granted in my young adult days of like, you'll have all the time in the world to cultivate your music and like
making mixtapes, you know, and you had to like, you had to like let the song play because you're recording onto a cassette, and it's just like,
oh, I did that.
Yeah, you had to like really experience what you were creating. It was different.
Yeah, it was a lot more hands-on for your music than just streaming it or doing it through iTunes. I also really miss the old iTunes format. I'm still bemoaning that. It's been 10 years, but, you know, still complaining about it.
So I guess, was there anything else that we were going to, I guess there was one lingering question, was just like, to bring it back to AADL TV, since we all are AADL staffers, and I've really been enjoying having AADL TV now. I just love, like, I can experience more of the programs more than I could when we were, you know, physically in person. So that's kind of a good thing. But I guess, you know, are there any crafts or anything that you've discovered through AADL TV, Katie?
Yeah. When AADL TV first started like gaining a lot of content, I was a little bit obsessed with it. And so I watched a lot. And then I think I kind of burned myself out on it. So I stopped watching for a while, but I'm back to watching AADL TV. I've been watching some Crafty chat. I loved the episode that you guys did with Emily. That when you were talking about space and everything, like that really got me thinking about my space. I have a new space too. This room that I'm sitting in used to be a guest bedroom, and now it's my home office for obvious reasons. So it got me thinking about the space a lot. And I actually have a tab open right now that I've been looking at the pegboards from IKEA that you guys have talked about several times. Yes. So that is probably happening. So thanks for that. I had no idea about that system, and I think it's going to be absolutely perfect for my space. Mm-hmm. So that episode was absolutely amazing. Thank you for that. I have been watching The Saturday Show, which I find endlessly entertaining. I'm behind a little bit now, and I'm like a little stressed about it. I need to get back to watching that because there's a new season now, and the album just dropped. So, I mean, gotta listen to that.
An album? Oh,
yeah. I think my favorite song
is the album.
My favorite song is "In the Garden." That's like one of my. I love that. Anyways, I love hanging out in my garden. Anyway, keep going.
I don't remember that one. So, but there are two crafts that were really sort of at the beginning of AADL TV. One was Ellie did mice finger puppets. Oh. And then Heidi, your basic pom-poms. And both of those crafts are something that eventually when we get back to work and I get back to going into the community and bringing crafts to places like senior centers and after school programs, both of those are just absolutely perfect for that kind of thing that I do with work. And so I'm looking forward to doing those and adapting those for our community members. And then also, those are just the two like off the top of my head. So I'm looking forward to going back through all of the craft programs on AADL TV and seeing then what I'll be able to bring for my job in the future. And I think it's going to be a lot. And it's so great because like, it's like before I probably could have like gone down to the youth department or like found you, Heidi, and been like, hey, I need this simple craft, but that's so broad, then you would be like, I don't know. But now for me to be like, oh, look at all these different categories of thing that I can like look at and then adapt for use in the community, I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. I love I love the library that's been created with the DLTV videos, and I plan on doing the same thing of going back at some point and looking through a lot of those of like for my own personal use, and then also of like what I like to adapt for a program for the library.
Yeah.
In the nebulous point in the end of, you know, in the future where we're doing stuff in person again. So.
You know, one that I really loved that I always think of is when Lucy did a printmaking with bubble wrap.
Mm-hmm.
That just
Ooh.
it blows my mind for some reason every time, because it's just such a fun thing, and you just layer it, and it's just this patterning, and just the way the effect of like paint with like the plastic bubble wrap, because it doesn't really stick to it, but you know, it doesn't, I don't know, it was just awesome. And you
That
can use
sounds
that
super
for
fun.
things. Yeah.
It's funny, that was from like my days as a preschool teacher, but the thing is I enjoy that technique more as like making art now as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm thinking about like the actual base layer for a print, or I've drawn on top of it, like it doesn't look to me anymore like a preschool project. And it's cool to go back and like create things or think or watch what people have created on AADL TV and think about I don't know, it's cool to go back and like think of how ideas have changed even from, you know, where they started in my brain or other people's brains. But yeah, I love the like Nancy, as you said, the library of, it's like a library of ideas that's just always growing.
Yeah. I know, hard to believe it's been like how many months that we've been at it now? Since
we're almost hitting
April,
a year.
basically.
Yeah. I think the earliest videos came out at the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they started with the story times, definitely were like right away mid-March, but yeah.
I remember, it's funny how much it's evolved too in that time. So like the very first thing that I did on AADL TV, I was making wind wands, which was a project that we had already started to pull together, and it was going to go with festivals.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I have all the stuff, like I'll do it on AADL TV. And it was a half an hour long, and it was live. So like that was intense, right? And then we quickly realized that that's not how this format works, and that's not appropriate for YouTube. But like, it's cool to like think about that. Like, and now I'm like, okay, well, I just did an 8-minute salad video, and like that was my thing, and that's what I do for work now, which is a little bit trippy to think about sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's I've experienced the same thing of looking at the videos that I first created of like all of this was live. I had no script. I was going off of memory. I was stumbling a lot, and now the stuff that I'm creating is like, it's scripted, it's edited, it's cut short. Like I've very much streamlined the process and taken out a lot of the meandering in my thought process, which I did not realize was as prevalent as it was when I'm watching it later. So I think it makes better content to have that very straightforward and directioned type of tutorial video, or, you know, it's got a vector. It's going somewhere. So yeah.
Awesome.
So I think that's all we had to talk about today.
We've gone lots of places. We've
gone lots of places, which is good.
Some salad, and yeah, it was a full meal.
I guess I have one more thing, guys.
Oh, great.
Oh, absolutely.
One more thing that I want to talk about very quickly is that so we're in the middle of the winter game right now. Mm-hmm. Something that I've developed a little program called Recipe Share. I don't know if you guys saw that, but we've had one session so far, and we talked about soup, and we had a group of patrons did come and had a discussion and gathered all of the soup recipes at the end and emailed them to all the participants. So it was a fun little meetup, and we're going to do it, I think 5 more times. I think we're doing six sessions. That sounds about right. Maybe 4 more times, 5 sessions. I think that's right. So it's every other week on Wednesday nights. If you guys want to stop by, it's pretty fun. We're doing dips and appetizers next.
Oh man.
Oh, that sounds cool.
That's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I did not see. It's like there's always so much, you just don't know what's going on. So thank you for bringing that up. So Wednesday night, at what time does that air on Wednesday?
We meet at 7 o'clock.
Or you meet? Yeah, it's not recorded, so it's
not recorded. So don't worry about that. And we email the recipes to recipes@aadl.org. I compile them, and I like to say this is a little bit of a selfish endeavor, because I'm getting all of like everybody's favorite recipes in each category, but I'm giving back too, so everybody gets all the recipes.
That's so cool. We'll have like this little anthology of community recipes. So that's I love it. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. I'll have to catch that at some point, because it's appetizers and dips is the area that I'm a little weak at in entertaining. So that'll definitely be useful for me. So thank you so much, Katie, for being on the show with us today. We really appreciate you coming and talking to us about
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to talk to you guys.
No problem. So we will see everyone again in 2 weeks for our next episode. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and don't forget to love each other. Bye, y'all.
Bye.